All right, we're working on a Porsche Cayenne 958 and we're doing rear brakes, rotors, and pads replacement. You don't need very much for this. The simplicity and the design of these brake systems are really easy, so we're gonna go through it step by step. You really don't need very many tools. You're going to need a triple square number 14. You'll also need a Torx number 50. It's a T50. You'll need a flathead screwdriver. You'll need a pick. You'll need a brake caliper piston tool depressor. Now, this is made specifically for calipers that have pistons on either side of the caliper. In this case, we have a 4-piston caliper, so we're going to need this tool. You can use whatever brake pad tool you have. And lastly, you're going to need a 19mm socket to remove the lug nuts for your wheels. And that's really all you need. Everything else is just brake cleaner, lubricant, and your replacement pads and rotors. The first thing I'm going to do is remove the brake pad wear sensor. And to do that, you're just going to use your pick. And on the back side here, you're going to go into the sensor itself, turn it towards the left, and you're going to pull, and this is going to come apart. And that's it. Easy as that. Now, the next thing you're going to do is take your flathead screwdriver, pop this in between the two pads, and you're just going to go back and forth to push the piston in slightly. And that's going to allow us to remove the entire caliper freely without any obstruction. Next, I've got my triple square number 14, and I've got 2 triple squares, one here and one there. Smooth like butter. There you go. 1 and 2. And you saw how the caliper just dropped there? That's because we loosened the pads and the piston is not in our way. Now, the next thing I like to do, just so we don't scratch up the caliper, is put a rag up top here, and then we're going to flip the caliper over. So I've got my rag up here. I'm going to simply take my caliper off, and we're going to flip it over like so. And now you can see exactly what you're working with. Now, there's really not a whole lot you can hang this off of, so I'm just resting it against the back, and I have it sitting on the rag that I have here. Now, the next step is to remove the 2 pads, and the sensor's also going to come out with it. Very simple. What you're going to do is take 1 pad, and you're going to pull down, and you're just going to pull out like a disc. There it is, and you can see these pads have absolutely nothing left on them. That's 1. Do the bottom side, you're going to do the exact same thing. Push up, and there they are. Nothing here. So now we can work on our caliper, we can clean it, we can lubricate it, and we can replace the pads, and then we're going to work on the rotor. Now, the first thing you need to do when changing your rotor is you need to ensure that your parking brakes are not engaged. That's because they are internal to this rotor. Now, assuming that is free and your parking brakes are not engaged, then you're going to get your Torx that we talked about, and I believe this is a Torx number 50, and that's going to go in here, and that's what's holding this rotor to the hub. So we're going to loosen that, and then this rotor should come off freely. Now, in some circumstances, if your brakes are out of spec, you may not be able to remove the rotor off of the hub. And the only way to fix that is removing this plug here. And if you see my other videos, I have another video where I talk about changing the air gap and adjusting the air gap. You would basically remove this rubber plug, and within that, you're going to put a flathead screwdriver to retract the brake shoes, and then it'll allow you to clear this rotor. All right, and there it is. And now we should be able to remove this. Maybe a little bit challenging at first, but if you pull it straight, it comes right off. And these are the shoes I was talking about. So you always want to inspect your shoes to make sure they're not cracked and they're still in good condition and there's still some meat left in them. And in this case, we're going to do a little bit of cleaning as well as a little bit of lubrication. You can see a lot of these are rusted out, a lot of these parts. And this is the adjustment I was talking about. So when you turn it one way, it'll bring these shoes in, turn it the other way, and it'll pull the shoes out. Now, the biggest question a lot of people ask, do I need a scan tool to put this into service mode? And the answer is no, you don't. You are able to complete the brake replacement, rotors, and pads without a scan tool. However, If you check my other videos, I will show you a process where you can do a grind-in procedure and calibration once you do put on new brake pads and rotors. It's required if, for example, you had an issue with these shoes and you had to replace them. But if you're just doing standards, rotors, and pads, you should have no problem at all. The computer wouldn't even know that you changed it. Now, before I get to any cleaning, I want to push these pistons back in. And the reason is we need to remove this bracket. Now, when we go to remove this bracket, we want to make sure that it doesn't hit our rubber boots. So to do that, we're going to push these pistons back in using the tool that I had showed you. And then once they're back in, we're going to pull this clip out, and then we're going to clean this entire caliper, clean up down here, and then we're going to put everything back together. So we've got our fancy tool in here, and it's a ratcheting process. So you've got it pushed up against all 4 pistons, and then you're going to ratchet. And you just want to make sure this is held in place here, and then push. And once it grabs, and I just lost it, so let's push that back in. There we go. And there you go. So you'll see all 4 pistons are now going back in. And you can see all 4 have been retracted, and so we're good to go. And we can now remove this clip and clear out this entire area. Now, I would say this is probably the hardest part of the entire process. Let me get my flathead here. And the easiest way to remove this clip is to lay it on its side like this. Take your flathead, and you want to insert right here where it's actually sitting flush. And you're going to just wedge your flathead. You're going to do this and pry, and then you're going to pry the other side as well, and it'll just pop out. That's the easiest way to do it. You need to use a flathead, and so you're going to put it on one side like this, flip it over, and do the same on the other side. Now, I do want to share a really good piece of information. This is the original that came off the Porsche, and this one is actually from a Volkswagen Touareg, and it's brand new. It was sitting on the Touareg, and then the Touareg was junked. But I just want to show you that this is half the cost of what Porsche charges. The part number on here is, I don't know if you can see that, but it says 7720208, minimum thickness 26 millimeters, and then there's another number, W510446091 21511. Now, I will post that in the description, but if this helps anybody to get half price off brakes, you're welcome. Now, you want to grab your new stuff. I'm using Power Stop Evolution ceramic disc brakes. Part number 17-1453, the Z17 Evolution Plus. Once you've done your cleaning, I'm going to get my new clip, and this one goes in pretty easily. You're just going to center it here, and then you're going to push really hard to get it in. So you're going to basically put it in the exact same spot you found it, right there. So wedge in one side. Once one side is in, you're going to push the other side in. Now, I found this to be the most difficult part, honestly, in this entire brake job. If you're trying to get it back in and you're having a hard time, easiest way is take a little bit of take some needle nose pliers and come right up here and squeeze these 2 tabs in just a little bit so that it clears this. And you won't have to worry about rattling or anything because the brake pads actually will push up against this bracket, so you won't have anything to worry about. So again, if you're having a little bit of trouble getting this back in because it's brand new, take some needle nose pliers or whatever you have and squeeze these tabs in just ever so slightly, and it'll clear. So I've replaced my rotor, and yes, it's a little bit rusty. This actually came off a Volkswagen Touareg. So you're going to reinsert the bolt that's holding it to the hub, and then you want to make sure you take the rubber cap off your old rotor and replug this adjustment hole here. All right, so once you get to this point here, you've replaced this cap, you've reinserted the bolt holding it to the hub, and now you've got your rotor on. We're going to start working on the caliper. So we know we have our caliper clean, and we've already replaced this bracket. So now what we're going to do is start lubricating anything that's metal on metal. So that means your pads, you're going to lubricate the back side of them when they touch the piston, as well as the little ears that go in and touch these 4 here. Use whatever lubricant you want. This is the one I use. Some of you use purple, others use green. It just depends on what you want. But you want to make sure you're using a silicone brake lubricant, not anti-seize. So here are my old pads, and you can see where the piston actually touches the pad itself right here, right there. So we're going to do the exact same thing on the back side of this. Put a little bit of silicone lubricant here, 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 and here. A little bit goes a long way. If you put too much, it's just going to attract dirt and grime, and it's going to gum up the entire system. So just put a little bit on the backside. So I put a little bit of lubricant here, here, and then within these two holes, and that's where it's going to, one, hit the bracket, and two, go around these ears on the caliper right here and right there. So now we're ready to insert. We're gonna take this with the pad side facing up. We're gonna insert like this, and then you're gonna push, and it clips right on. And now we've got one pad installed. Before we do the next pad, we're gonna have to install the brake sensor and then route it through the top of the caliper. Before we wrap it up, please subscribe and like this video. It really helps me create more content just like this. Now, this is the rear brake pad sensor by FVP. There's the part number 19097. Now, the only thing is if you don't have a brake sensor and you don't want to use one, another thing you can do is just take your old one, chop it, and then hold them together with some tape. Hold the two leads in, because basically all this is doing is tricking the computer and telling it that you have a closed circuit. And then when the brake pad wears down, the circuit opens and then you get a light on the dash. So if you don't have a brake sensor, no worries. Chop your original, wire the two wires together, put some tape on it, and plug it in. So this is your brake pad, and this is the wear sensor. So the one in the back is a shorter sensor, and the one in the front is a longer one. And it's as simple as this. You take it, insert, and it only goes in one way. And so you go like this. Nope, doesn't go in. So we're going to flip it and push, and that's it. And it sits in its little holder there. And the idea behind it is when this brake pad wears down, it's going to break that wire, which then is going to send a signal of an open circuit, and then you'll get a light on the dash. So now we've got our two pads in, we've got our sensor coming in, and it goes into one side of the pad, and I'll demonstrate that shortly. And that is it. And so now we can take this rotor, replace it here, and then do our final wiring connections and our two bolts, and that is it. All right, so once you've got your two triple squares back in, you're going to complete your final connection for your brake sensor, and then that's it. Now, the only thing I'm gonna recommend is before you start the vehicle, pump your brakes multiple times until the brake pedal gets hard, at which point you can then start the vehicle. And that's it for the Porsche Cayenne 958, rear rotors, pads, and that is as simple as it gets. They make it really easy to replace pads and rotors on this vehicle.